So benchmarks of several Intel 11th Gen Rocket Lake desktop CPUs, which include the Core i9, Core i7, and Core i5 SKUs, have leaked out within Geekbench. The benchmarks show a massive lead for Rocket Lake in a single-threaded department, which is one department in which Intel was hoping to regain its crown back from AMD. Now, the benchmarks that have so far leaked consist of 7 different SKUs from the 11th Gen Rocket Lake desktop CPUs. Now, these include the i9-11900K, the i9-11900KF, the i7-11700K, the 11700, just the 11700, the Core i5 11600K, and the Core i5 11500, as well as the i5 11400. And guys, at this point, Intel, can we please do something about the naming SKU? Because this is horrendous. I can't even get through a list without stumbling and falling all over myself, and it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, it's 11 and then the whatever. Anyway, all CPUs were tested on either a 400 or 500 series motherboard. For specifications, you can see the table linked in the article below for each individual chip. Now on to the benchmarks. The Intel Core i9-11900K is going to offer the highest single-threaded performance of any processor. The CPU scored an impressive 1905 points in single and 10,994 points in multi-threaded tests at stock configurations. Moving over to the 11900KF, we only have 2 results in which scored 1688 on single-threaded and 8,529 on multi-core points. Now, the CPU was running with DDR4 2133 MHz, so the score isn't that great. Compared to the Core i9-10900K, the 11900K is up to 27% faster. For the Intel Core i7 lineup, we first get the i7-11700K, which posts a maximum score of 1,810 points in single and 11,304 in multi-score test. Now, this result is purely insane because it was done with an overclocked 5 GHz, which puts it ahead of the Core i9-11900K's all-core boost, which could be the reason why the chip scores, well, are so high. It's possible that the i9-11900K was being thermal throttled, but the same should apply to the i7-11700K unless the tests were done with some really high-end cooling solutions. Now, for the non-K, the Core i7-11700, the CPU scored a maximum of 1718 points for the single core and 9,442 points for the multi-core test. Now let's talk about the Intel Core i5 lineup. The Core i5-11600K scored a maximum of 1622 points for the single core, 7,013 points for the multi-core. Now, once again, the platform was running DDR4 2133 MHz memory, which is in no way showing the full potential of the Rocket Lake CPU lineup. The i5-11500, the CPU scores a maximum of 1538 points in single core and 7434 in multi-core. And lastly, we have the i5-11400, which posted a maximum score of 1,500 points in the single core and 64 points in the multi-core test. The Core i5-11400 was also tested with DDR4 2133 MHz memory. So as you can see in the benchmarks so far, Intel has definitely gained some huge ground in the single-threaded segment. While AMD still holds a strong position for multi-threaded segments, it looks like Intel will be aggressively positioning its 11th gen lineup against the Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7 lineup, while the 14nm supply, which has definitely gotten better, will lead to some market share gains until AMD releases the next generation parts. The 14nm node is still power hungry, but due to the higher IPC, we should see some efficiency gains for Blue Team for using a brand new Cypress Cove architecture. The 11th generation Rocket Lake CPUs are planned for launch in March, but a more recent rumor has been hinted at a hard launch of the 15th, with reviews going live that day as well. Now expect to see more information on these processors in the coming weeks, along with pricing and updates on where you can buy these chips for your 400 and 500 series motherboards. And for more on this and other news, follow the link in the description and make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell so that we don't miss you in the next one.